Well, this got you talking, didn't it? This is it. This is the MacBook Neo. It's one of the most fascinating products that Apple has put out in the last 10 years, maybe longer, who knows? It's the cheapest MacBook you can buy. It sits below the 13-inch MacBook Air. And it's got you asking lots and lots of questions. For instance, is it fast enough for daily tasks? Can you go beyond everyday stuff and do more intensive things? Does the fact it has 8 GB of unified memory matter? Does the lack of a backlit keyboard matter? Should you buy it over the MacBook Air? Should you buy it instead of an iPad Air? I can answer all of those questions fairly quickly because I've been using this for the last few days, and this might be one of the simplest reviews I've ever done. Before I get started, just a very quick mention about my newsletter. It comes out every week. It's completely free. It features content that you do not get on this channel and giveaways and all sorts of cool stuff. Check it out down below. Let's get into this. Let's start with the design, because I think Apple has succeeded in making this a completely unique, fresh take on the MacBook. It feels very different to, for instance, the MacBook Air. I was surprised by that. I was thinking maybe it will just feel like a smaller version of the MacBook Air. It doesn't, and the reason for that is, well, there's several reasons. The first one is the colors. This is the indigo version, which is a very attractive shade of blue. I was going to go for the citrus version, but this one is calling to me. I think it could be the one to go for eventually. But regardless, much more funky, fresh colors than the MacBook Air. And the other thing is the display. So the display on the Neo, if I just turn it on, is 13 inches, but it doesn't have a notch. There's no notch on there. The bezels are a bit bigger, a bit thicker than the MacBook Air, and that means that the camera is housed within them. But that's not a bad thing. It makes it look unique. The other thing is the keyboard, which feels a bit spongier than the MacBook Air one. Not in a bad way. It still feels very, very nice to type on. The other thing is the trackpad, which is smaller than the one that you get on the MacBook Air. And because it isn't haptic, it's a proper mechanical click, it does sound different. MacBook Neo. You can barely hear the MacBook Air one. It's a very different feel. You have to kind of press the trackpad down a little bit more on the Neo. But again, it's not a problem because it is still 1,000 times better than any Windows trackpad I've ever used. And then you've just got the overall size of it. It's not that much smaller than the MacBook Air, the 11-inch, the 13-inch MacBook Air. It's a smidgen smaller, and it's also a smidgen thicker as well, but it has this kind of chuckability factor, this kind of sling it under your arm. I talked about the MacBook Pro, the 14-inch version, in the same way a little while ago, and this is like a smaller version of that. You can chuck it under your arm, you can chuck it into your bag, you can chuck it on the table. It's got that real everyday MacBook thing going about it, which, yes, I know the MacBook Air has that as well to a degree, but the MacBook Neo has it in spades. The speaker system, we have Dolby Atmos and spatial audio capable stereo speakers on the MacBook Neo, and, well, here's a very quick demonstration. Memory, not 16 gig, and I need to test those things, but Apple would not have made the Mac. It's almost impossible to demonstrate how audio sounds on a YouTube video, but trust me, they are very loud and, again, much better than any Windows laptop I've ever heard. The other really fascinating thing about the MacBook Neo is the fact that I keep reaching out to touch the display. I keep going, I don't know why. It's running Mac OS, it's not running iPad OS. Yes, it has an A18 Pro chip, so it has that version of Apple Silicon, which in theory means that any iPad could run Mac OS. Regardless, I do keep reaching out to touch it. Just saying, you can't do that, it's not touch enabled, but this feels like the most touchable MacBook ever for some reason. Just filming the footage of this laptop, and I've realized I forgot to mention the USB speeds, USB 2 and USB 3. Some people have asked, is that a problem? I think, again, for the people buying this, not really. I've not done speed tests for it. It will be slower than Thunderbolt, obviously, and this can only drive one monitor, one external monitor with the lid open. But again, that's enough for the people who are buying this. I've received loads of questions about the MacBook Neo since my first video on it last week, and most of them center around this nervousness that people have about the 8 gig thing. So let's start there. Does it matter that this has 8 gig of unified memory? Let's remember that this is a laptop for general tasks. It's for emailing, for web browsing, for undertaking calls with your team and with your family. It's for editing family videos, editing family photos. It's for messing around in GarageBand and getting into music production. It's for everyday tasks. It's a fantastic research laptop. You know, if you're a student, if you are running a small business or even a medium-sized business or even a big business, if you just need a laptop to do your everyday tasks, this is perfect. You won't really think about the whole 8 gig thing because it doesn't make itself known. We have to remember that Apple is in this unique position where they make the hardware, the software, and because of that, they can tune both of those things to work in perfect harmony. I've been using this laptop for the last few days and it feels exactly as fast, exactly as quick and undeterred by anything that I do as this M4 16 gig MacBook Air, which kind of illustrates the point that it doesn't matter that it's got 8 gig of unified memory. The 8 gig thing is one of 2 complaints about the MacBook Neo that have come from people who haven't stood in the same room as it, but let's address the second one. The MacBook Air has a backlit keyboard just like the MacBook Pro, which means you can see it in the dark. Nice. The MacBook Neo does not have a backlit keyboard, which means in the dark, you can't see it. Now, does that matter? I've not noticed it, but then I don't work in very dark environments. I tend to use this on the sofa at night or occasionally in this room that can be a little bit dim, but I haven't really noticed it. Students, I have no idea if this is going to bother them. I've seen lots of comments from people saying, oh no, if you're a student, you'll be so annoyed by this, the lack of a backlit keyboard because you'll never see it in lectures and stuff. I have no idea if that's the case. I don't know how dark lecture theatres are these days, but maybe you can get involved and let me know in the comments. I don't think it's a big deal in that respect. So the backlit keyboard thing, the 8 gig thing, if either of those things bother you, just get the MacBook Air. But both of those things do feel like a lot of hot air and the perfect fuel for Reddit threads. So if they don't bother you, just buy the Neo. Another common question I've received is how many tabs can you open in, for instance, Chrome before it dies? Let's find out. Let's open loads and loads of tabs with my website on it like this. We'll do this in Chrome, but we'll do it in Safari as well. Is there a quicker way just to duplicate tabs? There probably is. We might have to speed this bit up. Make Chrome faster. Memory saver frees up memory from inactive tabs. No thanks, let's not turn that on. Let's just keep going. Okay, by my reckoning, we've got about 25 tabs open there, and I can switch between them. Let's accept that cookie thing. I can scroll. Oh, hang on, that's slowed down a little bit. Oh no, it's just loading the images. Okay, I can scroll. That seems okay there. I can go into that article. That's all working. I can go to a different tab. Bearing in mind, I've also got Safari open and Fantastical and Slack and TickTick and Notes and Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro, just out of interest, that is sitting there doing, what is it doing? Oh, this is a 4K vertical video that I edited yesterday. If I play that back, plays back straight away. There was a little bit of jerkiness at the start, but there's no audio on this, one, but I can skip around. It's a little bit jerky now, but bearing in mind, I still have all of those Chrome tabs open in the background. There's loads of them. Let's go into Safari. Let's leave everything open. Go into Safari and open that website. Let's open the BBC website. I can still type in. It's responding to my input very quickly. It's still working. It was a little bit slow opening that tab, but I can still scroll through this. I can go into the iPhone 17 Pro page and it's loading pretty quickly. That's all looking good. I can go back to my website and a little bit slow to load, but we're there. And I can go into that article, for instance, very quick, scrolling down, fine. We still have Final Cut Pro in the background. Switching to it took a little bit longer then, but it was seconds. I can still hit play and it started playing. Bearing in mind how much stuff is open on this 8 gig laptop, it's still really responsive. I would love to see someone do that on an 8 gig Windows laptop. Some of the other questions I've had about the MacBook Neo relate to its ability to do more intensive stuff, so 4K video editing with effects, editing loads of raw files, raw photos at once and exporting them. I think someone even said, can you do 8K video editing on it? Logic Pro, music production, coding, design work. You know, can you basically push this thing to the limit? Yes, you probably can, but you're going to hit that limit quite quickly. And it's a really simple thing, this. If you want to do that stuff, if it's not a job, if it is a job, get a MacBook Pro. But if it's not a job, but you want to get into that stuff, get the MacBook Air. That's why the MacBook Air exists. The MacBook Neo is for the everyday tasks, for dabbling in things, but not really going beyond that. If you're expecting to do that with an A18 Pro 8GB laptop, you will be disappointed. You might be amazed by how far you get, but equally you will hit that ceiling quite quickly. But that's fine. That is not what this is built for. The big question for a lot of people is, should you buy the MacBook Neo over the MacBook Air or an iPad Air? Now, the iPad Air is a really interesting topic because it's a completely different operating system. It's a completely different way of interacting with that device. You can touch it, you can touch the display, you can do all sorts of things with like the Apple Pencil that you can't do with the MacBook Neo. So it's a very different device. I'd say that immediately. You're either a macOS person or an iPadOS person. I can't really tell you which one's better. I will look into that in the future, but I think the bigger question is the MacBook Neo versus the MacBook Air. If you do everyday things with your laptop and you rarely think about doing video editing or music production, just get the Neo. You could upgrade to the MacBook Air at some point if you wanted to. The only other reason that you'd go for the MacBook Air over this is if you needed a bigger display, so if you wanted the 15-inch version, or if you wanted more memory, obviously, and if you wanted more internal storage. This goes up to 512 gig, this goes up to something. So many specs, we'll put it down here. But if you want that much internal storage in your MacBook, get the MacBook Air. You do have the second-hand market, obviously, and as people keep pointing out, if you get a second-hand MacBook Air, an M3, or even an M4 version, like a refurb version, you can technically spend the same money on the Neo that you can spend on an Air. That's always going to be the case, and if you want to go down the line of going for a second-hand MacBook, fine, that's up to you. It's not a bad thing to do at all, but this is about buying a brand new MacBook, and we've never had anything like this before. This is new ground, and I'm so glad Apple has done it. I've got so many ideas about how to test this thing, and I will be using this as my main laptop for the next few months, maybe the next few years. I'll compare it fully against the MacBook Air. I will do some kind of comparison against the iPad Air, and I'll keep giving you updates on how I'm getting on with it. In the meantime, guys, it's over to you. Let me know in the comments, have you ordered a Neo? Have you not ordered a Neo? Why? Get involved. I'll see you down there, and I'm just so excited about this. We've got something new to talk about. The other question, is it the best thing that Apple has ever done over the Mac Mini? Because I claimed that the Mac Mini was the best thing they've ever made last year. I'll answer that later.